Okay, hello everybody. Am I live? If someone is there, can you please tell me in the chat if you can see me and you can hear me? First, because I don't know whether some of you will try to join in the live and you won't be able to, and that is because I had to do it twice for technological reasons. So if you are there, anyone, just please let me know as soon as you can, if you can see me and hear me. Yeah. Okay. So I think I am. There is no one here. So, but I will continue in any case. Okay, this is a summary about what has been going on, what I have been reading, and what I have been listening to regarding the death of Pope Francis. I didn't want to talk about it all week, so I talked about other things, but this is going to be a summary, as I said. One thing, I am going to refer here to lots of videos that I have watched, and I'm going to refer to those videos and tell you that I will put the links to all those videos down below in the description box. I will, for each video, I will put there that, from minute 3 to minute 5 or 4.5, this is where I got this from, what I'm going to refer to now, okay? Of course, you can watch the whole video if you want, but that is as a reference to what I'm saying now. The only problem is that when the video is recorded, we can add those links straight away to the description box, and you can see them right away. But with the live stream, things work differently. I haven't been able to figure out how. And you cannot change anything on that live stream for at least 24 hours. So if you're watching this and you want to watch all the videos, there are going to be 9 altogether that I am referring to with pictures and things. Go back in 24 hours and you will see them there if you don't see them right away. Okay, so I'm going to start first with some videos one video that with pictures tell us about the symbols of the funeral. They talk about the tomb and the cross. All right. About the tomb itself, you will see, if you have seen it already, that it is very bare. Yeah, there is nothing there, only the words Franciscus. And there is something a little bit off that people are remarking about, because the name Franciscus, it's what you see is FR space A space Ciscus. So there is a sort of a why are there 2 spaces between the A, first before the A and after the A? Well, this could be something silly and too much reading into something, but there are in the Spanish speaking world, they're talking about this. What it is? There is something off here. Never mind. It's a very bare tomb, yes, and then all you see is the cross there. The cross, supposed to be a crucifix, that he wore as a pope. I have referred to this a number of times, perhaps 2 or 3, where I explained that he actually didn't want to wear the cross, that the crucifix that popes wear, when he was asked, he never made a public statement about it, but in an interview, when he was asked why that crucifix was, why he was wearing that crucifix, he said something about, well, it was the one that I wore when I was ordained bishop, so I thought it would be a good thing for me to continue to wear this one. Okay, so fine. Actually, that crucifix that he wore, Spanish wit said, "My goodness, it has as much artistry as a bottle opener." But in any case, it was his crucifix. Now, in the tomb, you see that crucifix that he wore all the time as Pope, except that it is not a crucifix. A crucifix is a cross with Christ on it. Yes, for Catholics that is the crucifix. Protestants just have the cross without the it's not a picture, the description of Christ on it. For Catholics, the crucifix is the cross and Christ on the cross. But this is not the picture that was there, the engraving that was there on that cross. It was a different thing. What you see, and you will see it in the video that I will put in the description box that you will see tomorrow, is actually an engraving. And if you zoom in, you will be able to see it. It's the same one that is on his tomb right now. And it is, you see a lot of sheep, and then what seems to be a shepherd, and a shepherd sort of carrying a lamb on his shoulders in a sort of an awkward position. Now, the problem with this is that obviously the first thing that you get is that, okay, so it's not an actual crucifix, but it is depicting Christ as a shepherd, guarding his sheep and so on, and carrying one on his shoulders. The problem, I think, theologically is that Christ is the shepherd, but he is also the lamb. The Christ did not carry the lamb. Christ was the lamb. Yeah. So, but in one video, you will see an explanation of how this person says this is not, in any case, how a shepherd would carry a lamb on his shoulders. Because the whole posture of the lamb, and you have to go back to Osiris, the Egyptian god, blah, 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 he explains it very well, is a lamb that where you're going to actually break his legs. Very complicated, with depiction of the shepherd like this, and they go back to the Egyptian gods and all kinds of things. So a lot of problems with it. It might be that oh, okay, some of you are here. At least one, thank you. At least I know I'm not talking just to myself. But is this something that continues to be, there is always something off about something. This is the reason for confusion. If he wanted to be different and wanted to do things differently, it would have been better if he had explained, look, I'm not going to wear the Pope's regalia because of this and that reason. I'm not going to wear those shoes. I'm not going to wear the same cross. I'm not going, and do it publicly and give an explanation for it. And so then there would be no confusion. I mean, people would agree or disagree, but at least he said it publicly. But he would say these things sort of halfway in an interview, on a plane. It is not really surprising that people are confused about him. Okay, then I will also show a different video for those of you who are just joining now. I will repeat this in the middle of the stream for those who came late, okay? That I will put all these videos that I am referring to in the description box, but it takes in a live stream 24 hours before I can change anything, okay? So go back, come back to it tomorrow and you will see them. Okay, so another video is regarding the announcement by Cardinal Ferrell. You probably have seen that. And this is a video by Decrevi, who's an Irish priest. And I'm just going to read you the start of his talk in this video now. Because he says, on April the 21st, the reason for I chose this video is that he was, for a short time, this priest, Irish priest, in the Legionaires of Christ, not knowing he was before he was a priest, and 18 years old, not knowing what was to come of all that organization. Basically, it was something in the 90s. There was this charismatic leader called Father Marciel, I believe he is. And then many, many years later, it was discovered that it was an organization really that encouraged, there was a lot of corruption, there was a lot of all kinds of things, and especially for the those who have a certain affection for youth, if you can understand what I'm saying. And he was part of that, and he explains how he takes issue with Cardinal Ferrell, the one who announced the death of the priest and who is in a position of power at the moment, saying that he only met this leader, Father Marciel, once or twice, and he doesn't, and then he left, and there was nothing much to it. And this Irish priest says on April 21st, Cardinal Ferrell dedicated a few words, official words, an official announcement in about 1.5 minutes to tell us about the official death of Francis. Okay, so whom he described, oh, sorry, this is another video. He was described as Bishop of Rome. He said that he returned to the house of the Father. This is a previous video, okay? And all right, so Cardinal Ferrell was a member of the Legionaires of Christ, according to this Irish priest. He says, I just want to make a point here about all this. I am questioning his own public record about his statements, that is Cardinal Ferrell's statements, regarding Father Marciel and Cardinal McCarrick. You remember that one who was an abuser of children. Based on what he said on record and other reports, for example, the footnotes that we read in the McCarrick report. He adds, I'm not making an allegation here that Cardinal Ferrell is a bad man or that he's covered up anything or committed any kind himself of sexual abuse. He says nothing of the sort. But he says, what I'm going to say is important that I say it because the stakes are so high here, folks. The stakes are so high at this moment in time in the life in the church, in terms of who gets to elect the new pope, as regards who pushes forward a candidate for who is to be the next pope. And questions need to be asked, simple questions. When we look at these figures in the church who rise up so high, rapidly sometimes, I would add, and have so much power and so much influence, and some of them should not, never have been there in these positions. And he's going to share a photo of him as a young priest with Father Marciel himself. And he says, but I show you this picture to highlight a point. I didn't just meet him once or twice during my short period at the Legionaires of Christ. And I wasn't ordained a priest as Cardinal Ferrell was. I wasn't ordained a priest by the Legionaires of Christ. Cardinal Ferrell's complete formation was in the Legion. When he joined, after having left Ireland and went to America, and there he naturalized American. This is the point that he is making. His complete formation was in the Legion. And this is just to highlight a point, he adds. Because when you're making these public statements that, oh, I left the Legionnaires of Christ because of ideological differences, I only met Father Marciel once or twice. No. Your whole spiritual formation was molded by this man. People don't realize sometimes, he adds, how important spiritual leadership is in the church, or not just in the church, in the Catholic Church, in other congregations as well. We need men who are in union with God. This is really important. We need men who are at the stage in their spiritual life that they have reached to mentor disciples, that they need to be in union with God. And if you haven't gone through a period of discipleship, of spiritual growth, yes, in the spiritual life, how are you to lead others? I think he makes a very important point here that he could have perhaps go on to explain a little further. And if I can summarize it, it's like if you haven't been an apprentice at one point in your trade, let's say, how can you possibly be a master of that trade? How can you possibly mentor or tutor or lead others? And so we have crises in our seminaries, crisis with priests who spend much of their time doing pastoral work, only pastoral work, it seems. The emphasis on pastoral work, never on doctrine, never on teaching the faith, but on pastoral work. And some of them get burnt out. So So they reinvent things, they reinvent the liturgy, yada, 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 yada. No union with God. They become kind of social workers. And many bishops and cardinals not in union with God, he keeps pointing this out and he explains it very well. McCarrick just died, the abuser, of children. McCarrick, obviously not in union with God, could not have arrived at that stage of the spiritual life. How can you mentor somebody? How can you lead the largest archdiocese in the US with priests under you and seminaries under you? How can you be a spiritual father to them? And so this impacted the formation of those legionnaires of Christ. Big time. Father Marciel, all the long talks that he used to give in Rome. He used to come there, he says, and I thought at the time that he was a living saint. But we were sold a lie. A lie. You do not understand how it is like, what it's like to live for years and years and years under a lie. Cardinal Kevin Ferrell says he did not suspect anything. Okay, these priests continue, I believe him in the sense that many of us, ex-legionnaires, have discussed this, and many of us didn't suspect anything. We weren't privileged is double life, Father Marciel's. But he says, now looking back, of course, the signs were there. He continues, I remember in 1993 in Rome, in the general direction, I don't know what that is, the general direction. I was 20 years old at the time and sitting right beside Father Marciel at dinner out in the garden of the general direction on Via Reglia. And at the time, and this was the same in Dublin in 1991, he says, when I was 18, I was surprised how much food they flew in when Father Marciel visited us in Ireland, November 1991. November 1991, there was food. At the time, it seemed so exotic. There were papayas there and mangoes and manchego cheese from Spain. He says, I was 19. In 1991, I don't think I had ever seen a papaya. But if you want to know the truth, he hadn't seen a papaya. He says, but anyway, all kinds of very strange gourmet kind of food. And all these was being catered, was being actually couriered for Father Marciel, probably because of his love for children, yeah? And he had... and also the apartments where he used to stay with all those carpets and all that luxury. And none of us, of course, lived like that, but we thought that's fine. Out of respect for him, they give him these nice, beautiful, expensive luxury apartments. And he said, but me and my simple mind, nevertheless, when I saw that abundance, superabundance of everything, I thought, my mind went to St. Francis of Assisi. So he's explaining that the signs were there. And he said, the signs of my thought was to Saint Francis of Assisi. Saint Francis of Assisi, of course, cared for the poor. He was an aristocrat who sold everything he had, including his aristocratic clothes, and gave them to the poor, and was there with the poor and suffered hunger and poverty like all the rest of them. And he says, but Father Marciel there was a superabundance of all these things, and in my simple mind, I thought, this is not exactly how Saint Francis did his preaching or anything. And he walked everywhere. Of course, there were no cars then, but in any case, Father Marciel, now being chauffeured around in a Mercedes everywhere, with all this special food brought for him, with all those luxury apartments, he said the signs were there, they were in front of us. So anyway, I recommend this video that you will see in the description box tomorrow. Another video that I will link is completely different. Is a historian, is a Spanish historian, very forthright in his considerations of the late Pope. And he says straight away, and this is what many people feel, but that is for your consideration, yes? He says on the day after, yes, he died, do you consider him a good pope, says the interviewer. And he says, his name is Eduardo Serrano, you'll see him there. He says, no, many of us have not considered him a good pope. Of course, we don't know, because we don't know what happens at the end of a person's life. And that is for God to judge, not for us. But I don't think he was a good pope, he says. Not only that he was not a good pope, I think he was a terrible pope. I have always refused, he says, to address him by that title. It is something personal, he adds. But I've always called him myself, I always call him by his real name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio. Then he goes on to talk about the last popes that he respected for different reasons. Pope John Paul II and the last Pope Benedict XVI, whom he regards as the greatest intellectual theologian of the 20th century. And then he says, but this one has been absolutely disastrous. He has been the Pope of globalism, the Pope of the Agenda 2030. That is what is normally called now. It started in the continent. In the English-speaking world, in England and in America, you remember that at first it was called Build Back Better or something like that. Boris Johnson used to speak about that. But now is the Agenda 2030. He continues, the Pope of George Soros, the Pope of all that toxic. He's very straightforward in his talk. He's the Pope of all that toxic and poisonous imbeciles of climate change and so on. He's fun to listen to. So I will link that video. Okay, then I have two more videos. One is only 35 seconds. And it has gone viral in Spain and in the Spanish-speaking countries. Why? 35 seconds. The Prime Minister of Spain is meeting the Pope. him and other dignitaries have been invited to an audience with him. But before that, before they all sit down and listen to the Pope, the Prime Minister, you see him, it's only 35 seconds, you see him with the Pope here, and there is a table there full of things, books and booklets, red ones. And it's something that the microphone caught, which was not supposed to catch. Probably because there would be an audience soon after, a few minutes after, and they were setting up the microphones. But this was not supposed to be public. Just the microphone caught it. They are whispering. And very quietly, the Spanish Prime Minister is showing him a book, a very old book. Perhaps it was a gift. We don't see that. A gift, you know how they exchange presents and so on. All you hear, and it's very difficult, the audio is obviously not very clear, but you hear him saying, yes, and he wrote it, and it was published, something. And then there is a cut. So he was obviously talking about that very old book. He was giving it to him as a present, something like that. But then, immediately after, within those 35 seconds, you see the Pope talking to him, showing him the booklets on the table and saying to him these words that come loud and clear, not loud, they're whispering, but they are clear for a Spanish speaker to identify. And he says, talleres, let me say it in Spanish first. Talleres artísticos, then there is a little pause that we don't hear, and then masonicos. Oh my goodness. So, talleres, workshops, artísticos, artistic. Okay, in Spanish, we put the noun before the adjective. Okay, so we don't say a tall tree, we say a tree, tall and beautiful, all the adjectives go afterwards. So he's saying talleres, workshops, artísticos, artistic. And there is a little something that we do not hear, and then he says masonicos, Masonic. And they continue and we don't hear. But those 3-4 words come very clear, you can hear it. So of course, oh my goodness, some saying he's talking because he says our artistic Masonic workshops. That is the viral thing. What did he say? Our Masonic artistic workshops? What is that? There could be a confusion here, just to be fair. He could have said that these booklets are printed, yeah, that seems clear, that what he's saying, in our artistic workshops. There is a little word there afterwards that we can't hear, and then he says Masonic, and then he says what is the other word that he said? The natives, the indigenous, Masonic, indigenous. Those are the words we hear. So it could be that these are the booklets that we publish, work on, print in our artistic Masonic workshops to give to the indigenous people or something. Or it could be the opposite, if you're fair, because of the the silence between the words that we don't hear. It could be the opposite. It could be these are the pamphlets that we publish in our artistic workshops in order to combat the Masonic influence teaching on indigenous people. It could be contrary, but that is what we don't know. And so, of course, you can imagine that the video is going viral in the Spanish-speaking world. Okay, because what we do here is workshops, our artistic workshop space, Masonic, indigenous. That's all we hear. And that is 35 seconds. Then we have, and I will put the link to the actual audience with the Spanish Prime Minister and the ambassador and dignitaries, and that is 35 minutes. Never mind about that. He's talking about politicians and this and that. He does refer to the difference between the country, the nation, and the patria, the homeland. And this is something I actually teach my young students about. The countries. He doesn't say this. The country is the geographical country. Yes, the nation is something more. It's those who are like you, your same culture, your same language, your same religion, those alike. That some of them, in some instances, could be part of another country, indeed. Okay, so he's saying, and then he says about patria, the homeland. And he explains to them that the country is the politician's obligation, duty is to make it progress. And then he says the nation, the responsibility of the politician is to consolidate that nation. And then the patria, he says, is to build it. And he goes on and on about this, but that is not important. What I found very interesting, because it connects with his enmity, I would even say sometimes it goes beyond animosity. Sometimes I have described it as even hatred, but perhaps that's too strong a word. I don't want to offend you. That he has towards anything traditional or tradition, certainly in the Catholic Church. And he says, and this is what I want to discuss, he quotes, when he's talking about this, he says about the patria and so on, he quotes a poem by a poet that I can't quite hear the name. The audio is not very good. And he says, and he quotes him by saying, more or less, what the tree has in its flowering, what it has become, the flower of the plant of the tree comes from that below the soil. And I have referred to this, something similar, in the last video I posted yesterday about branches being cut off from the trees. Loose branches cut off from the roots. And he makes the same mistake here. He has referred to this again and again and again in his fight, in his open fight against tradition in the church, against the mass of forever. An animosity that I have never been able to discern why, unless he is anti-Catholic. I couldn't understand the hatred. And I think I see a little reason here of why, part of it. Because he says, He continues then to say, but you see, the flower did not stay there in the root. No, 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 it's different. It's not there in the roots. The flower is the flower. Now it is a flower. And he continues, you see, we have to combat this traditionalist fantasy that they always want to be in the roots. Let's go back to the roots. And he is like that. Let's go back to the roots. Let's go back to the roots. Below the soil. That is his understanding of tradition. Just wanted to go back under the soil there. That is what tradition means to him. That is what roots mean to him. And then he goes on. You see, he says, yes, you were a son, but now you are a father. And goes on and on. Okay. Yes, there is something disconnected here. Yes, you were a son, and now you are a father. But you don't need to cut off that link. You are a father because before you were a son, or you could not be a father now if you had not been a son before. Just because you are a father, it doesn't mean that you have to cut off that you were never a son. You were a son before. And even though now you are a father, why cut that link off and say, oh, you only want to be a son, a son, a son? No, it's just admitting that now I am a father, but I owe this to my roots. Why despair the roots? That's not the right word. Disparage the roots, since they were the ones who allowed you to be the father. Do you see this misunderstanding? He absolutely hated tradition. He saw them as people who just want to be there, in the first century or whatever. This is a misunderstanding of tradition. What else do I have here? Yeah. Okay. Then I have another video that you might find interesting of when he was, before he was a pope, the pope, when he was a bishop. And he's being interrogated in court by a group of lawyers. I think they were testifying about what happened during the Argentinian junta and all the crimes and everything else. And he has been accused, he was already a bishop, and he was accused at the time, although he died off when he became a pope, but everyone knew, or he was accused of, not having, first of all, the worst accusation is that he had given the names of Jesuit priests working with the poor to the authorities, and the authorities were actually persecuting a lot of priests because they thought they were communists, and perhaps they were not. But anyway, priests who were working with the poor were persecuted, and some of them were killed. And he was accused of being a bishop, having given the names of some, perhaps that's too much, but certainly of not having helped enough in his position as bishop to intercede for them, for these good priests, which he could have done, and he didn't. So that was the accusation. So in this court of law, the lawyer he's sitting down and he's being interrogated. And you will see there how, again, this thing about this diffusion of words that, the historian I mentioned before actually makes this point. He says, we know about Argentinians. Okay, Argentinians, so he said, don't get me wrong, we are brothers, you are a brother country, we love you from Spain, all that. But you must admit that you have this thing in your genetic DNA or something of talking, piling things upon things. And then at the end, you say, what did he say? Well, I don't know. And you can see he doesn't answer questions directly. The prosecutor has to insist, yes, but can you answer the question? Did you or did you not give the name? Did you or did you not? And he doesn't. He just, well, I was just as an example of that. It's not very long, but it is in Spanish. I don't know whether it will interest you to hear it, but there you are. Okay. What else? I will have to try to find a video of this Cardinal Tangle. Is that his name, from the Philippines, whom I mentioned in another video? One of his dedicated followers, he made him a cardinal, and he's there in a church singing, oh, imagine there is no heaven and no religion too. This is the person whom he made a cardinal. But not only that, he was actually, this Cardinal Tangle, was actually the head of a charity, a Catholic, I think it was Caritas. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure about whether it was Caritas or not, but certainly of a Catholic organization, helping the poor, you know how it is, yes. And lots of corruption, money disappearing, all that kind of thing. He had to resign. And then Francis called him and made him, I think, first an assistant to the Vatican Bank, and then a cardinal. As he did with some of the judges in Argentina, who, I mentioned this before, that the ladies, the women, the famous women who wanted to know about what had happened to the disappeared. This judge no judge has ever in Argentina giving a verdict on what happened to these people, or nothing. No one has been condemned for it, nothing. And this particular one, he actually promoted him to the Vatican, in some teaching position or other. So, and then another Tuccio, who's there, his second-hand man, who publishes erotic poetry, and all these people he has raised and promoted. Okay, now the last thing. As to the conclave now, we all know that by now that there are 136 cardinals to vote, and Tangle will be there in the middle. He could actually, perhaps not, but in theory, he could become a pope himself. But 80% of those cardinals voting, he promoted himself. 80%. There are only 18 named by Benedict XVI, and I believe is 8 or something like that. I'm not sure of the numbers, by John Paul II. And many are calling, among them Archbishop Vigano, but he's not the only one, who wrote to Cardinal Ray in the Vatican saying that before there is a vote, that there is a need for investigation as to whether Francis had actually fallen into heresy. Not even going back to whether he is a illicit pope or not, but the question of heresy, because then all these cardinals who he has appointed, they would be illicit. They would be not valid cardinals. And he says that unless this is done, the problem is that the church is going to be more and more divided. Cardinal Berg said that there might even be a schism in the church now. Who knows? Or there might be two popes. In other words, this has to be sorted out before we actually, before we the vote takes place. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen. So let's see. Okay, so that is my thing. Let me see if I can read. There are some posts here. To God be the glory. Yes. I've made it for a live version for the first time. Sean Glasgow, God bless. Thank you for being here. Kip, hello. Are you seeing this prompt on your side? If your initial stream notification does not work, please restart and reconnect with latest notification. Yes, I said that at the very beginning because I had it all ready to go half an hour before. I just left it there, not live. But then when I went to click into it to go live, I had to start all over again. So it could be, I'm not sure, that perhaps people have one link and others have another. I'm not sure. Kip, how in the world did you escape my notice as you have had a YouTube channel since 2015? No, that was my, no, I didn't have a YouTube channel since 2015. It's only been 2 years. It's just that when my son-in-law set it up, used my original Gmail for this. So I don't know how he did it. No, I have been actually streaming or recording videos for 2 years now. I am enjoying you enormously now that I found you. Thank you. I look forward to lots more of your videos. Thank you. Finola, that's right. Okay. Peter, in order to go forward, please go back to traditional values. Yeah. Travis, oh, my friend, my dear Travis, you made it. Hello, Lali, just on now. Sorry, got delayed. I look forward to playing it back. Travis, my friend, thank you so very much. Travis is someone who his comments are always spot on, and I do appreciate your contribution, Travis. And even when there is the odd person who attacks me personally, you are an old hack. How dare you say this? Travis is there answering with a very curt, to the point. And I told him in one comment, I said, I feel as if you have my back. You're always defending me. So thank you very much. Okay, I leave it there because I don't know how long I've been speaking. And to repeat again, all the links to the videos with the pictures and everything will be posted on the description box. However, since one cannot make changes to a live stream. You can make changes immediately to a recorded one, but not to a live stream. You have to wait 24 hours or something. A time has to pass by before I can make any changes, but you will be able to see them there. Thank you so much, my dear friends, and God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye.